The February of 1831 came into Ashcombe Ley the way an illness comes into an old body, not all at once and not anywhere in particular, but everywhere a little, so that no one part of it could be named as the thing that was wrong. The mortar had gone soft in the south chimney, and the smoke came back down it in an east wind. The bell in the stable arch had cracked in the frost of the year before, and had been left cracked. The lime avenue, which had been planted in a straight line by somebody's great-grandfather, had 11 gaps in it now, where trees had come down and not been replaced, and the gaps were the first thing a stranger saw coming up from the turnpike, and everybody who lived there had stopped seeing them years ago. Marianne Selby had not stopped seeing them. She was 39. She was small and grey-brown haired, and wore a gown the colour of a slate roof in rain, which had been her mother's, and had been turned once and dyed once, and the dye had not held across the shoulders, and her hands were cracked at the knuckles from cold water, and her eyes were grey and level, and gave back exactly what they were given. She had been the eldest of 5. She had been 19 when her mother died, and her father took to his bed with the gout, and the family's money went into a canal company that did not get built, and she had run that house from that day, and had put 2 brothers into the world, and 2 sisters into marriages, and had watched all 4 of them go, and had stayed. It was said in the parish, without malice and without anybody remembering who had said it first, that Miss Selby of the Ley was the oldest unwed woman in the county, and it was very likely true, and she had heard it said in a shop in Marbury, on a Tuesday in January, by a woman who did not know she was standing behind her. She had bought her thread and gone home. She did not cry. She had learned young that tears were a coin she could not spend, and had never once been given change for. That February morning, she was up at 5:30, doing what she did every morning, which was to walk the house with a candle before the fires were lit, because a house tells the truth at that hour, and at no other. She put her hand on the north wall of the long room, and it was wet. She stood in the shut library and smelled the smell that meant a gutter had been full of leaves for 4 years. She counted the pails. And then she went out into the frost in her clogs and pruned the espaliered pears on the south wall, 16 trees, which she had pruned every February for 20 years, because there was no gardener, and had not been one since the year 23. What nobody at Ashcombe Ley knew, and what she had told nobody in 11 years, was that the fruit off that wall was not eaten in the house. It went to Marbury in the carrier's cart, in a padded hamper, under the name of Selby's mother's people, which was Arden, to a man who dealt in early fruit for the great houses, and it had been going for 11 years, and it had made in that time £390. She had spent every penny of it on the fabric of the house, in sums nobody thought to ask about. The kitchen range, the 2 windows on the stair, the £11 for her youngest sister's wedding shoes. A woman with no money is pitied. A woman with £390 in a house that owes the butcher is asked where she got it, and the asking has only one shape. The Duke of Wraysbury came on the 9th of February about the lime avenue. 14 of the trees stood on his land, and the rest on hers, and the whole avenue had been planted by agreement in the year 1761, and he came on foot with the frost still on the grass, because he had learned in 11 years that the moment a place knows what you are, it stops being itself. He was 41 and looked older. His coat was as black as a shut door. His face had been a good-looking face before somebody went over it with a plane and took all the give out of it. He asked at the door for the master of the house, and was told there was none, and was shown round to the south wall, where a woman in clogs was up a short ladder with a knife in her hand. She did not come down. She said good morning, and told him that 11 of the gaps were on her side and 3 on his, that a lime whip cost 1 8 at Marbury, and would want a guard against the deer at 2 shillings more, that the whole avenue could be made good for £11 and that £11 was not to be had at the Ley, and she was sorry, and that was the whole of it. You have costed an avenue, he said. Somebody has to. The trees do not care who does the sums. Behind him, on the path, his cousin Mrs. Hepzibah Vane, who had driven over with him and had been talking the whole way, laughed her small, pleasant laugh, and said that dear Miss Selby was quite the wonder of the county, and that it was such a comfort to think of her here with her pears, so wonderfully useful, so wonderfully settled, and that of course at her age one gave up such things as avenues, and looked forward, and did not repine. She said it kindly. She always said everything kindly, and the Duke of Raysbury stood on that path for 1 second, 2, 3, and said nothing at all, because he could not think of a reply that would not have been a rudeness to a woman on a ladder in her own garden. Old Amos Pargeter, who had been carter at the Ley for 31 years and had come round the corner with a barrow, set it down and did not pick it up again for a while, because he had carried the hamper to Marbury every Thursday for 11 years and knew exactly what those pears had bought, and had never once been asked, and had never once told. He came back on the Thursday about the avenue, then on the Monday, then by the end of March, 3 mornings a week, and it was never called anything at all, and what they did was work. He held the ladder. He learned to take the prunings. She sent him up to look at the south chimney, and he came down and gave her the depth of the perished mortar in inches, because that was the only kind of report she would take. He was, she found, not cold, but stopped. His wife had died 11 years before in the childbed, and the child with her, and he had shut the east wing where their rooms were, and had not been into it since, and had put the whole estate into the hands of his agent, Mr. Marmaduke Ferrers, and had signed whatever was set in front of him every quarter for 11 years without reading a line, because reading it meant seeing his wife's hand in the margins of the older books. He told her that in the fruit house in April, with the rain going on the roof, and she did not say she was sorry. Then go into the east wing, she said, and go through the books, and stop paying a man to have opinions so that you need not have any. You have bought 11 years of not knowing, and it is the most expensive thing on your estate. Something moved at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile. The almost. We'll take a very short break. If you don't want to miss new stories, please subscribe to the channel. Old Lady Ursula Twiss made it official, in the way of old women, which is to say, without asking anybody. She was 81 and lived at Marbury on 400 a year and a spine like a poker, and she had buried an earl and 2 sons, and she came to Ashcombe Ley in May because she had heard that her godson had been seen carrying prunings. She spent 20 minutes with the invalid father and 11 with the daughter, and formed her opinion in the first of the 11. You are not what I expected. I am sorry to disappoint you, my lady. I did not say I was disappointed. I said you are not what I expected, and there is a great difference, girl, and you had better learn to hear it. She looked at the hands. You are 9 and 30, and they say you are the oldest unwed woman in this county. I am aware of it. They say it in shops. They said it of me at 3 and 30, and I married at 4 and 30, and buried him at 40, and have been the happiest woman in England ever since, so I would not set much store by it. She tapped the arm of her chair. Who put your sisters into their gowns? And Marianne Selby, who had answered every other question in her life, without flinching, sat in that room and said nothing at all. 1 second, 2, 3, and the old woman watched her not answer, and said, more gently than was her habit, I have thought for 8 years that there was money in this house nobody can account for. I never inquired, because I did not wish it stopped. But you are being looked at now, child, and when a woman is looked at, the looking does not stop at the part she chose. Get it into a book with dates, and get somebody respectable to witness the book, and do it before somebody makes you do it. Mr. Marmaduke Ferrers came in the 3rd week of June. He was 8 and 40 and pink and pleasant, and had traced the Ardern account without much difficulty, a fruit factor's book being open to any man who asks agreeably. He found her in the fruit house. Miss Selby, or Miss Ardern, as Marbury has it. He smiled. He always smiled. It was the same muscle. 390 pounds, my dear, in a house that owes 11 guineas at the butcher's, and has a father upstairs who has not been told. You will be asked where it came from, and you will say pears, and they will laugh, and then they will stop laughing, and think about the canal company and your father's affairs, and about how convenient it is that the only person here who keeps a book is the only person with anything in the bank. The smile did not move. His Grace holds his audit at Wraysbury on the 11th of July. Be gone before it, and there is nothing said at all. And Marianne looked at the pink, pleasant face and saw the fear under it for half a second, and understood that he had not come about her £390. He had come because a woman who could cost an avenue at £11.4 had been standing too near a set of books he had been writing for 11 years. She had 19 days, and she used them at night, with the fruit house door bolted and one tallow candle, because a half-built case can be laughed away and a finished one cannot. She had the Marbury Factors book, 11 years, every payment in his own hand, and signed. She had the receipts for the range, and the windows and the shoes. She got from the timber merchant at Marbury the tally of oak and lime delivered to Wraysbury in 11 years, and set it beside what the estate had been charged, and the difference ran off the page. She got the marks of 6 tenants to the rents they truly paid at Michaelmas, and she got, laid open on the fruit house bench on a Tuesday, the Wraysbury account for the year 20, with £220 entered and paid for the replanting of the Lime Avenue, both sides, in the autumn of that year, and not one whip had ever gone into the ground. She copied the whole of it fair, twice, and checked her columns twice, and said the totals out loud to the empty room, because a number said out loud cannot be argued away by a frightened man. The audit sat at Wraysbury on the 11th of July, 61 men in the long room, and the tenants standing at the back, and Marianne Selby was there because Lady Ursula Twiss had required it, in the slate-coloured gown. Ferrers laid it out beautifully, and Mrs. Hepzibah Vane sat near him, with her hands folded and her kind face on. He had a duty that gave him no pleasure. There was a lady present who had for 11 years been trading in this county under a name not her own, and had near £400 by her, while her father's household went unpaid. He made no accusation. He would only observe that a woman of 39, with no prospects, had lately contrived a great deal of private access to his Grace, and that people did wonder. He was very sorry. He was extremely sorry. 61 faces turned. Marianne stood up, and found that the dread of a thing is nearly always larger than the thing. "Every word Mr. Ferrers has said is true," she said, and her voice went the length of that room without her lifting it. "I have sold fruit off my own south wall in Marbury for 11 years under my mother's name, which is Ardern, because my own name would have shamed my father, and here is Mr. Yeatman's book, with every payment in his hand, and he is in this room, and may be asked. £390. Every farthing went into the fabric of Ashcombe Ley, and here are the receipts, the range, 2 windows, my sister's wedding shoes, and I have not spent 11 shillings of it on myself in 11 years, which is not a virtue, only a fact. I told nobody, and that was cowardice, and I do not defend it. And since I am to be looked at today, you shall have the rest of it. £220 stands entered and paid in this estate's book, for the replanting of the Lime Avenue in the autumn of the year 20. There are 14 gaps in that avenue this morning, and I counted them on the 9th of February, and His Grace counted them after me. The nurseryman at Marbury has supplied no lime whip to Wraysbury since the year 16, and has written it out and signed it. 6 of your tenants have made their marks to rents that appear in no book of yours at all." Marmaduke Ferrers laughed. It was small and pleasant, and it was the worst thing he could have done, and he knew it before it was out of his mouth, because no man laughs at a column of figures. And in the silence after it, the Duke of Wraysbury came the whole length of that room, and stood beside her, and said to the table, in the flattest voice in England, "The lady has my accounts because I gave them to her. And since my cousin was good enough in February to tell Miss Selby what a woman of her age gives up, I will say now what I have gained by it. I have been 11 years signing my name to the ruin of this place, and the first person to tell me so stood on a ladder and did it in inches. Send for the nurseryman." What followed took until dark, and was not lovely, and there was a night in August, when he stood with a pen and every intention of writing to 9 men who would have finished Ferrers by Michaelmas, and Marianne put her hand flat on the paper. "Send him to the law and not one letter," she said. "He robbed you, and he can answer where there are figures and a bench, and a man may reply. But he did it because he was frightened of being poor, and I have been frightened of being poor for 20 years, and I did secret things about it too, and mine happened to be honest. That is luck as much as virtue, and I am not sure enough of the difference to stand over any man and enjoy it. And your cousin is to be let alone." She said a cruel thing kindly, which is what people do when they have been taught that a woman is finished at 35, and she believes it of herself, and that is punishment enough, and I will not add to it. So it went to the assizes, and Ferrers made restitution of about 1/3, and the Duke made up the rest out of his own pocket, and counted it cheaply bought. The avenue was replanted in the November 14 limes with guards against the deer, and the whole came to £11 4, which was what she had said in February. He waited until every shilling was settled, and the Ley's butcher paid, and her father's affairs put straight, so that there should be nothing left between them that could be mistaken for a debt. And then he came to the south wall in the frost of the following February, with his sleeves already back. "There is nothing owing," he said. "Your house is dry, and it was your own pears that did it, and I have made sure the county knows it. My godmother has offered you a home for life, whatever you say to me, and has undertaken to outlive me if I make you uncomfortable in it. So I am asking a free woman." He turned the pruning knife over in his hands. "They tell me in the parish that you are the oldest unwed woman in this county. I have thought about that a good deal. It means that for 20 years, every man within 11 miles looked at a woman who could hold a household together with her 2 hands and could not see her, and that not one of them came, and that you were still standing there in February with a knife in your hand doing the work anyway. I call that the great good fortune of my life. Will you marry me?" "On one condition," she said. "Name it." "Amos Pargeter carries no more hampers. He is 68, and he has known about the pears for 11 years and never said a word. And he is to be pensioned properly and told that I know he knew." A year on, in the February, the Duchess of Wraysbury came out in clogs at 6:30 with a candle and walked the house before the fires were lit, because a house tells the truth at that hour and at no other, and then went out to the south wall and pruned 16 espaliered pears, which she had done every February for 21 years, and saw no reason to stop. Beyond the wall, the lime avenue ran up from the turnpike without a gap in it. The county had counted her years and made a total of them, and been perfectly accurate and entirely wrong, which is the commonest kind of arithmetic there is. What a woman has spent her life doing is not the thing she gave up. It is the thing she was, the whole time, in front of everybody, waiting for one person to look at the wall instead of the calendar. Thank you for listening to the story all the way to the end. Please tell us which city you're watching from and what the story made you feel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new stories.